Thank you for joining today's panel. Today we're going to be covering how to market your brand on Amazon. My name is Amanda Belden. I'm with Payoneer, and I'll be your moderator today. So I'd like to introduce our three panelists. So first we have Michelle Barnum-Smith. She is the CEO of EasyBot.com. We also have Emma Shermer-Tamir. She is the CEO of Marketing by Emma, and Mohit Minas, who is the Director of Growth at Sellics. So why don't you, each of you, take some time to introduce yourself, share a little bit more about your background and what you'll be chatting about today.
Hey everybody, I'm Michelle Barnum-Smith with EasyBot.com. I'm known as kind of like the queen of Amazon chatbots. I have been teaching Amazon sellers how to use chatbots to rank, launch, and increase reviews for the business since 2017, which makes me feel a little old for whatever reason, back in the good old days in 2017. Anyway, I'm super excited to be with you guys today and chat all things ranking and review with chatbots.
Awesome. I'm Emma Shermer-Tamir from Marketing by Emma. I'm really excited to be a part of this panel, and we're kind of taking the other side of things, which is after you're driving all of that traffic to your listing, how are you actually making sure that you're converting? So what are you doing to really connect with your customers, make sure that you're differentiating yourself and getting as many people as possible to click add to cart, or even better, buy now?
Great. Thanks, Emma.
Awesome. Hey guys, my name is Mohit. I am the Director of Growth at Felix, essentially leading some strategic initiatives and business development. Prior to this, I was also leading the product for our advertising section, so I have a little bit of experience on that front as well. A little bit about Sellics. What we help people do is to help them with the three core essentials of selling on Amazon, which is profit monitoring, SEO, and PPC. So more on the traffic aspect of things. When people are actually searching for your product on Amazon, how do you get them to your product detail page?
Wonderful, thank you. So to kick it off, Michelle, I'd like to ask you, what are the three key areas for a successful marketing strategy?
So, this is really important. Before I was known as the queen of Amazon chatbots, I actually did corporate high-tech marketing. So I've been doing marketing for over 20 years. And one of the key benefits to selling on Amazon is that Amazon brings traffic to you. As a business owner, you don't necessarily have to be this expert in marketing because Amazon has this massive brand and you get to piggyback on that brand, right? But as Amazon has become more competitive, dare we say, more cutthroat, it becomes more and more important to own your own brand, to understand what it means to A, have a brand, and B, to develop an audience that you can develop a relationship with, and eventually, even maybe sell your products into other channels, even your own channel. So kind of the three things and areas that we're going to talk about today is targeting, or understanding your target audience. B, we're going to talk about traffic. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is traction, or once you have that traction or traffic, how you can go from there to develop relationships and really excel in your business.
Wonderful.
It's so interesting talking about the branding piece. And I think for a long time, you could get away with not doing that on Amazon. And both because there is so much more competition, but also the way that Amazon is evolving, that branding piece is becoming so much more important. Everything from having brand stores show up in the search results to all these other special privileges that Amazon is giving brands when they're wanting to market their products. I think that we can see just by some of the developments that they're doing that they are valuing branding in a whole new and really important way.
Absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. Registering for the brand registry is becoming almost critical to success on Amazon, simply because of the tools that Amazon restricts for just brands. You mentioned the brand analytics aspect of it. There is also the enhanced brand content, which they have, plus the different ad formats that are only available to brands. So I think at this point, if you're not a brand, you're kind of missing out. But hey, we have this panel to help you do what you can.
Right. It's not just enough. It's not enough anymore. It's not 2017 anymore. It's not enough just to show up with a product that looks like everybody else's and you just get a piece of the pie automatically. It really is important to stand out and to not just have a listing that shows up at the top, but just like Emma was saying, that actually has the power to convert that organic traffic.
And some of that's even understanding what you're really trying to achieve, because you can probably still have those, trendy product successes that were such a popular way of doing business a few years ago in the Amazon space. But if you're really looking to establish longevity and grow a business that has value, then you need to be more thoughtful about what you're creating as a whole, not just assembling a really random collection of products into your catalog.
Got it. And how do you determine who your target audience is, and why is that important?
I'll jump in. So, your customers are obviously, if you don't have them, then you don't have a business. And I think that a lot of people, especially when they're new to business, have this idea of, I want to sell to anybody and everybody. And why would I limit myself by saying I'm only going to sell to these people? But the problem with doing that is many things. One is you just dilute yourself. So you're just sort of saying, oh, well, we don't specialize in anything. But also, then you're putting yourself right up against the people that are already the strongest competitors. And if you can figure out who your target niche is, then you have the ability to command a market that's just yours, instead of having to go head to head with all of these really fiercely, already incredibly competitive people.
Right. I completely agree with that. One of my sayings is, when you niche, you're rich. And as a marketing professional, I used to teach businesses how to develop marketing strategies. And one of the key aspects of targeting is, or identifying who your target customer is that I say in business, you have to date. You guys date in here? I dated for a long time before I got married. So I got really good at what I thought was identifying my target audience. And the thing is that when you're new to business, you need experience. You're not ready to jump right in and say necessarily, this is who I want to do business with. You can get a general idea, but sometimes you need experience in saying, okay, this is the type of customer that I like to, work with. And the nice thing about, and maybe Mohit can speak on this, is that one of the nice things about Amazon is that when you do brand registry, you get access to your brand analytics, which tells you a lot of demographics about who is buying your product. And there can be, a big difference between who you think is buying your product and who actually is buying your product. And if you have, and that can also vary seasonally, because you might have a product that a woman would typically buy for herself, but during certain times of year, you might see a jump in the gift giver space in men or older women buying that product for younger women, things like that. So it's really important to understand both your your primary audience, who typically buys your products, and understand that demographic profile, but also kind of get into their head and understand, well, what motivates this person? And Emma's an amazing copywriter and writer, and she understands how we have to understand these buyer personas and really capitalize on how to motivate people to actually buy.
Yeah, so Michelle, I think you brought up a very pertinent point in terms of essentially why it's important to essentially establish a brand and establish a customer fit. There is certainly a lot of value in the brand analytics, which we can dive into. But before that, I just actually remembered a very interesting customer story that I want to share with you guys. That essentially I was speaking with a customer more at the tail end of last year who was selling essentially hand wraps that you can use for all sorts of things. You can use them for everyday activities. You can use them for competitive sports like boxing, Muay Thai, all kinds of UFC stuff. And this dude was actually going sort of, across the spectrum with very generic marketing strategies when it came to hand wraps. And this is the time that he was living in his apartment in New York. And then he actually studied his customer behavior. He went on Facebook groups to see what kind of people were actually buying his product for. He saw the reviews that he was getting, what kind of searches people were using to actually get to his product. And he realized that about 80% of the people that were coming to his product to buy those hand wraps were actually looking for boxing hand wraps. They were using it for a very specific use case, that was boxing. And well, he said that this was eye-opening for him in terms of how he went about his marketing strategy in the future. He essentially sort of redesigned his product, put in a brand logo and stuff to customize his entire strategy around boxing. And well, maybe a year down the line, he has sold his apartment in New York, and he now owns like a yacht in Malta. So he doesn't even have a place to live anymore except a yacht. So,
oh, poor guy.
yeah. I was feeling very bad for him on the call. I was like, hey, maybe I can get you a discount to use our software.
So that's a great example. When you niche, you're rich, right?
Yeah,
like, I love that.
absolutely.
That's a really great story. That's a really great story.
Yeah. And I think it's, it's scary to do that, right? Because you say, well, if I'm doing that, then what about all those other people that I'm missing out on that they're going to get to my page and they're not going to see this use for if they're taking a walk in the park and their hands are hurting or whatever those other reasons are. But when you're trying to appeal to all of those different people, then the boxers who are the primary purchasers are getting lost, and they might look at that and say, well, this isn't a professional level product that I need to know is going to perform and be able to put it through all of the intensive workouts that my schedule is requiring. And so you're actually losing credibility with your true target market by trying to capture too many sort of even conflicting people. But then a lot of times what happens is you establish yourself as the authority in that. And so then eventually you do start to get some of those other customers as well, because they just want the best hand wraps. And if it's strong enough to be able to undergo what a professional boxer puts it through, then it's certainly going to be able to perform for a really casual usage of somebody that is and will never be a boxer.
So
absolutely, and it's essentially about just the best usage of time that you can have as a seller. Look, if you have all the time in the world, nothing is stopping you from creating two different brands, one which is targeted at boxers and the other one which is more generic. But if you niche, you're rich, yeah? So if you only have the time of the day to do one thing and one thing properly, well, go after the boxers. Apparently, they have a lot of money.
So this is what I recommend. I think if you guys are, as Amazon sellers, if you're new to thinking about your target audience, what I would do is first make sure that you, like Mohit has shared, get brand registry. And so you can start tracking that demographic data. And so like the kind of sketch and the outline of who this person is. And then if you can, do some deeper dives to get to know those individuals and be like, well, there might be some really obvious use cases for your product. It depends on the product. But just like in Mohit's example, they had no idea that so many people were using it for a specific use case. So it's not just enough to know the demographics. It's also important to know kind of that use case and that psychographic profile as well. So that's where I would get started in targeting and getting to know your customers.
Great. So once you determine who your target audience is, what kind of channels can you use to drive traffic? And how do you maximize on that? Michelle, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things to talk about, because once you know who your customer is, then it's all about knowing how to find them. And one of the main things that I help people do and I talk to people about is chatbots and ranking and launching and doing reviews and those kinds of things. But one of the most important aspects of that is Facebook ads and Instagram ads and finding your audience in these other channels. And I know a lot of Amazon sellers are kind of like new to that space. Amazon's a big marketplace. There's a lot to know. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of ways to get beat up in that marketplace. And so the idea of learning something else can be totally overwhelming and intimidating. And this is where having that customer that buyer persona and taking that to Facebook ads makes your life so much easier, because then it's really about like using Facebook Ads Manager to quickly identify. Let me just share an example. So yesterday I was, or earlier this week, I was talking to a client who has a very niche product. She sells items for sugar gliders. Do you guys know what sugar gliders are?
No.
I did not. I was like, what is this? It's a critter, for lack of a better term. It's like a little flying squirrel, but very small. Anyway, there is this passionate pet owner base for sugar gliders, and while you can't target them directly via Facebook ads, there's like this massive Facebook group of over 25,000 sugar glider pet owners that allows advertising in their group. Wow, what a great, like, this is your audience. Here you go. Instead of waiting for those people to type something into an Amazon search bar, instead you can go to them and go to them directly and share like, oh, look at these great benefits of our product, and you don't have competition there, right? If they type in, certain keywords, all your competition is going to show up. If you can go to your audience directly, you don't have that same kind of competition to deal with. So, I mean, that's just one benefit in developing not just your audience, but then identifying how best to access them outside of the Amazon platform.
Yeah, that's a very interesting tip that you mentioned, Michelle, which is, going directly to your customer. That's in essence, I think, the key to success, which is just to think about identifying essentially, once you've established a brand, you had a certain vision in mind when you said, okay, I'm going to customize this product for so-and-so use case. Now, all you need to think about when going after the different channels, be it direct to the customer through Facebook groups, through content strategies, all of that stuff, be it through paid marketing, which is through like Google, Facebook, or even like Amazon PPC, or whether it's through like affiliate, any of these channels. Ultimately, the question that you need to answer is, what is this person going to be looking for in order to buy my product? And once you've answered this question, you have the right strategy in place for like whatever channel you're looking to cover, whether it's Amazon PPC, whether it's Facebook groups, whether it's your Amazon SEO strategy. All you need to answer is essentially, okay, what are boxers looking for? What is the problem that they're facing when they're looking, for example, for hand wraps? They're facing stiffness in their hand. It's bleeding. So think about maybe a step backwards, and what is the ultimate problem that this user is facing that they're going to search for on any of these channels in order to ultimately find a product that is relevant to them. So as a seller, if you just take a step back and think about why your customer is finding this product, then essentially you have this strategy already in place in your mind. One additional aspect, I think certainly, as you mentioned, Michelle, the direct-to-consumer route is certainly very powerful because it's often underutilized by a lot of sellers. Most people actually focus on the marketing channels which are easily available to them through PPC, through Facebook ads, etc. And they miss out on the big gravy that is present through the direct channels. That's very helpful. At the same time, I wouldn't say that they should be ignoring the mass market sort of channels, which is for example, SEO, PPC, and all this stuff either. Because, for example, if you can get customers when no one else is getting them, great. But you need to be competitive where everyone else is sort of getting customers from as well. Because, for example, there's a shopper coming on Amazon.com and searching for shoes. They have the intent to buy shoes already at that point. So that is a highly engaged shopper that is ready to purchase. So essentially, the strategy needs to be manifold. Usually, I think when it comes to the topic of wealth creation in general, people say that don't have one single strategy when it comes to making money. You should have multiple different channels of wealth creation that are even active when you're sleeping. And that's essentially the same thing that you need to do when it comes to Amazon. Yeah, you need to have your content set up on Amazon and Facebook, Google, all these different channels. Plus, you need to have your paid marketing and affiliate strategies in place to make sure you're successful through all the different channels.
And I think it's important to, especially if you're a newer seller, don't listen to all of this and think like, oh my gosh, I don't have all of these other things, so I'm just failing and I need to disregard everything that I'm doing right now and focus on developing out a Shopify store and my Facebook shop and Google. You can do these things in pieces. And so if you want to take a step back with your listings, you want to make sure that you have a clear keyword strategy so that you are able to connect with those people that Mohit was talking about that are there on Amazon ready to shop, and make sure that all of that is dialed in so that you can really, you're paying Amazon in order to be able to sell on that platform. So make sure that you're really optimizing your presence there before you're starting to do all of these other things. So it's not one or the other, and it's not if you're not doing all of these things, then you're failing. It's building on the basics first, making sure that you have everything super dialed in, and then finding all of these other opportunities like what Michelle is talking about, like some of these other types of advertising, so that you're just building upon all of these other efforts that you are establishing.
Emma, I had a question for you on the optimization, the listing optimization side, and this goes off of what Mohit was talking about in really understanding kind of like the pain of your customer and what they're shopping for, not what you think they're shopping for, but like, that kind of thing. What are some ways that sellers can work that into their listing so that it's like higher converting and really speaks to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that in the same way that you're doing your research about who your customers are, those same places can be a fantastic opportunity to really get into the mind of what your customers care about. And you want to be really clear about how they're feeling and the types of problems that they're having, rather than just making assumptions about things. So diving into that Facebook group about sugar gliders a little bit more and seeing the types of questions and stresses and frustrations that people are having, and then starting to get a clear understanding of what's the language that people are using around this. Maybe there's like some special ways that you refer to a sugar glider that you would never even know existed and you wouldn't be able to find in any dictionary, but is common usage in the sugar glider space. And so knowing everything from the types of slang and language they're using, and then really getting a clear sense of what are those key problems. And it can be very difficult to know how to communicate that with writing. I think that naturally when we sit down to write about something, we kind of just go into description mode where we say, this is this does this. And that's fine. And you want to have those components there. You want to be able to describe the basic functions of what a product does. But if you're only doing that, then you're missing out on really being able to connect with those deeper emotional sort of drivers that are ultimately what people are making decisions about. So thinking deeper into what are those fears that people have? What are those worries? What are those things that they get really excited about? And the best way you can do that is, let's go back to, I guess these boxing hand wraps are the theme of this conversation. But let's say that one of those, Mohit was talking about stiffness. I don't know a lot about hand wraps, so I don't know if that's one of the things that they're actually helpful for, but we'll just make that assumption. So on its head, that sounds like you're solving a problem there in itself. It prevents stiffness. But there's something more to that that's a little bit deeper. So yes, you want to prevent stiffness, but why do you want to prevent stiffness? Is it because you want to be able to train longer hours? Is it because if you get too stiff, then you lose the accuracy, or you can't hit with as much impact when it comes to your actual competitions? So there are some deeper things going on there that you want to be really, really clear about. And so keeping on asking why whenever you have a feature or even what seems like a benefit of your product, until you land on that thing that's like, yes, that's that soft spot. That's that thing that if you're able to connect around that, people will want to purchase this from you.
And to touch on that, Emma, how do you direct traffic to your customers' listings versus their competitors?
I'm probably not the best one to talk about actually driving the traffic there. So what we do is we make sure that we have a really solid understanding of the keywords that people are using to search for products like yours, that we're making sure that those are in the listing or in the back end if they don't make sense to make customer facing, and then making sure that everything's written in a way that's really going to capture those customers so that they won't want to go looking at your competitors' listings. They just look at it and say, this is for me. So probably Mohit and Michelle can speak more specifically to the actual bringing traffic and stealing it from the competitors.
Absolutely. Like, happy to jump in on that. But Emma, like, specific to the point that you mentioned, if, for example, let's say a seller only has 2 hours in their day and they're thinking about what to optimize, whether like they should be optimizing their ad campaigns or like going after direct channels, or whether they should be optimizing their product listing, I think personally my take is that they should be focusing on the product listing. Because I mean, it doesn't matter if you get upper funnel activities right. I mean, no matter how many customers you can actually get to your product page, but if after they have seen your product, they're not impressed by it, if they don't find the images to be sharp, if they don't find what they're looking for in the description, if the title is, for example, something that is more generic, if your like reviews are not proper, then they're not going to purchase the product. So it doesn't matter any of the upper funnel, the activities that you did to get that person to your product, if they ultimately did not result in a purchase. So that is absolutely the most critical aspect of it. So to essentially make sure that your product is in the most presentable sort of way to the ultimate customer who's arriving. And once you have ensured that, certainly do a lot of investment of time in SEO and PPC to essentially make sure that the question that you post, which is to ensure that people are actually coming to your product and not your competitors. Yeah. So there are essentially 2 ways to do this. Let's say if somebody's searching on Amazon.com, you can present your product to the customer either organically or through paid advertising. Now, the crux to organic is essentially the SEO on your product page that Emma was referencing to, plus a few other aspects which come in, which is essentially like, how is your product been performing in the past? How are the ratings, reviews, all of those things, which you sort of gradually develop over time. Yeah. So like, for example, if you're a new seller who's coming onto Amazon, you're probably not going to have the best reviews and the best ratings, and you're probably not going to be ranking organically so well. And that's where sort of PPC comes in to actually help you give a boost, let's say, for your new products or for your entire product range if you're a new seller. And the good thing is Amazon actually has a lot of tools that they provide to help you understand how people are sort of searching to find your products. On the organic side, when it comes to the brand analytics reports, they tell you what are the top searches that your product is receiving. Plus, on the paid side as well, they have this beautiful thing called like automatic campaigns and stuff, where you can actually just sort of run your PPC strategy in Amazon's hands for a while and see how people are searching to arrive at your product. And once you identify like the top searches that people are making to get to your product, it's time to sort of drill down on them, have very specific strategies in terms of your advertising campaigns around them to essentially make sure that you drive market share at that point. And also put them in your product listing, put them in like your backend keywords so that your organic ranking goes up. Yeah, so it's essentially a cycle that feeds itself. To rank well organically, it's not easy from the start, so maybe you need to do a little bit of paid advertising to make sure that you get enough sales. And once you have enough sales from paid advertising, well, the organic picks up on its own. So, and then you're sort of on this autopilot where you're buying a yacht in Malta.
Oh, the yacht in Malta. Wow. I hope you get to visit that yacht.
Yeah, I did make friends with him once I got to know that he wants a yacht.
You're not just friends with him because he has a yacht. You were friends before.
Good friend to have.
So. That's right. To your point, to both Emma and Mohit's points, when it comes to Amazon, what's so cool about the platform from a marketing perspective is that people go to Amazon to buy. That's really what they're there to do. They're there to shop. If somebody's on Facebook, if they're on BuzzFeed, if they're on, some of these like social platforms, they're there to entertain themselves. They're not there to shop, really. And so any advertising that you run on those platforms is kind of interruption marketing. Whereas on Amazon, people are literally typing in search terms because they have a problem that they are actively looking for a solution to. And so in the buyer journey, which is a marketing term, in the buyer journey, they are well past the identification of a pain stage. They're well past identifying if there's something that they're interested in. My dog is moaning, so that's the dog. Anyway, so people have high purchase intent when they come to the platform, when they type in those search terms. That's why those search terms are so critical and so important. And showing up in the search results is so critical, because let me give you like an analogy. I used to, when I would do marketing strategy for businesses, I had plumbers who came to me all the time and be like, I need to sell more toilets. And I'm like, and they're like, I need to run Facebook ads for toilets. And I'm like, no, you don't. Because who thinks about buying a toilet? Who's like, oh, that's a nice looking toilet. I need to replace my toilet. No one ever does, right? Like the only time you think about your toilet is when there is a problem, and then it's an emergency, right? And then it's so important to be found, right? So I redirected their marketing and their ad spend from, I want to do Facebook ads too. No, you need to focus on PPC and Google, because it's really critical to be found when somebody's hunting for a solution. And so Amazon's really great like that. Like basically everybody's searching for toilets. Now, like everybody, it's not necessarily that critical all the time, but it's really important to be found when somebody is searching for you. So to the point of Emma and Mohit, it's really about having those, to Emma's point, being indexed for the right keywords. Having your listing ready to go to look really great when it comes to the competitive landscape. And to Mohit's point, especially if you're a new seller and you have that product that, maybe is going to be buried, to bring that forward. Now, in my world, I like to escalate that with things like chatbots and external traffic to help you, launch faster with chatbots, because then you're basically sending traffic from Facebook, sending your own traffic, where, in the form of chat marketing to Facebook, so that you can get to page one faster and to increase those reviews faster. So it's not necessarily changing the landscape on what wins and what makes people win and lose on Amazon. It's basically getting you there faster.
So I know that we've talked about targeting and traffic, and our final T is traction. So how do you gain traction once you've brought people to your product? Does anyone want to jump in? Mohit?
It's sort of interesting because it's essentially what we've been talking about since the very beginning of this whole conversation. It's not this, just hit my mic. I got too excited with my hands. It's not this situation of, okay, first I figure out who my target audience is, then I drive traffic, then I build this traction. No, it's all happening simultaneously, so that if you are doing chat marketing with what Michelle is talking about, then you are just helping do all of these other things, and then you're also at the same time collecting more information so that you can be more specific with your targeting, and then collecting more information so that you can make better choices when it comes to where you're putting your ad spend and making all of these different decisions. So it's about making sure that you're not just doing these things, but that you're analyzing, that you're reviewing, that you're optimizing, and that you're continuing to take all of these different inputs and make sure that your growth trajectory is going like this. You don't just want to go like this, and you certainly don't want to go like that. And to do that requires constant reevaluation.
From a traction standpoint, I think it's really important to understand that ranking campaigns, launch campaigns, external marketing of any kind is only as effective as the quality of your listing. So what I tell people is that ranking and launch campaigns are a lot like teaching a child how to ride a bike. And I have 2 little daughters, and they are thick in the bike riding world right now. And have you guys all learned how to ride bikes here? Do you have those memories in your head? I know I do. I have a few scars too from it.
Yep, me too.
So one of the most important things that you do when you are helping somebody ride a bike is that you provide them stability and balance while they're learning how to pedal and feel comfortable on the bike. But they can only find balance through one key word, and that is momentum. Once I let go of my daughter's bike, if she doesn't maintain that momentum on her own, what's going to happen? Right. There's going to be blood. There's going to be tears. There's going to be, I'm never doing this again. I'm not getting on this bike. And probably several of you sellers out there, when it comes to Amazon and whatever you're doing, have probably fallen off the bike once or twice. Or, if you haven't done it yet, it's coming for you, because that's just the rules of the game with Amazon. But the key with any kind of ranking and launch campaign is essentially what we're doing is we're helping to provide you external momentum. But once we shut that momentum off, once we get you to page 1 and position 1 or wherever it is that you want to be, your listing has to be able to maintain that momentum. There is no, ranking campaign in the world that is going to fix what is broken when it comes to your listing. And listing optimization, I would say that in this list of things that we're talking about, traffic should be last, because your listing has to be, high converting. Otherwise, any of that traffic that you send is going to be wasted. Because traction really is going to be the key to keeping that momentum going, right? And that's what we want as marketing professionals for you is to be able to create something that self-sustains.
Absolutely. I mean, the product listing needs to be totally in order. And maybe it's coming a little bit full circle, but I can't stress enough how important it is to get the brand registry and to have to customize your own brand. Because look at the important challenges that your typical seller faces when in terms of getting conversions once somebody has already arrived at the product detail page. Challenge number 1 is not having the right sort of information there to present to the customer. And challenge number 2 typically is not owning the buy box. Now, if you're customizing your own brand, well, Amazon helps you out with both of those things, because you actually get access to A+ content, which will actually help you present a bigger story to your end consumer. You can put videos in there. You can put a whole catalog of pictures, explain how your product works, all of that stuff. Once you have established a brand. And secondly, well, you never ever lose the buy box again, because it is your brand and nobody else is selling this brand. So try and customize in the niche that you're operating in. Let's say if you're selling a massage chair, ask your manufacturer in China to put a little gear on it which makes it customized, so that you can put a brand label on it, register for the brand registry. It will open up a big channel of opportunities for you. Yeah. But absolutely, I think in terms of investment of time, Michelle, you mentioned this, Emma, you mentioned this, it's critical to first nail your product listing, before you invest even a single dollar in marketing.
Yeah, having a well-optimized listing, it's not just about having fancy-looking marketing. It's about having giving customers a really clear understanding of what your product is, and maybe even what it isn't. Because you don't want to just make a sale that somebody's going to turn around and make a return for. Because what's that going to do? It's going to negatively impact your seller account, and it's also creating a negative customer experience. They were really excited about this product. They got it home, they opened it up, and they realized it's not the one for them. So it's not about making a sale at any and every cost. It's about making the right sort of sales with customers that are then going to, in a perfect world, want to see what else you're selling or want to repurchase that if it's something that that people are using up and needing to purchase again. And maybe next time they're not just going to say, I'm just going to go to Amazon and type in whatever, but they're going to go to Google and search for your brand name and want to buy directly from you because they had such a positive experience and they don't want to waste their energy trying to figure out one from the other. And so it's being really thoughtful about how to present your product in a way that is going to connect with those deeper emotional drivers that we were speaking about, but also present your product honestly so that you are helping to create the opportunity for a customer relationship that goes beyond one transaction. And that's one of those other places where if you can gain some traction there, then you open so many doors for yourself and for your business.
Yeah, one important area of traction, and as it relates to the listing, is of course reviews and social proof. It's one thing that even with everything I know about Amazon, I still am looking for those high review products, even though I know that I shouldn't. I still care about what other people are saying about the product. And as Amazon sellers, it's of course getting harder and harder to, play fairly on Amazon, because there's so many sellers who manipulate reviews. And I think some things that you can do to get traction with reviews, kind of like two points really quick. And this also plays on to what Emma was saying about like ongoing relationships. But I'm a huge fan of product inserts, having calls to action on your products that motivate people to engage with your brand, and scan codes, links, calls to action, really good offers on those product inserts to get your buyers to take action so that they can become subscribers in your ManyChat account, so you can start that direct relationship with them. Yes, asking for reviews is a part of that journey, but once you know who those buyers are, you can start to market to them directly, especially if you sell a consumable where maybe it is like a supplement where it's a 30-day supply. That if they like your product, they're probably not going to be going and starting that search journey all over again for new, Garcinia cambogia. They're just going to rebuy what they bought previously. And so this is a great opportunity to develop, use Amazon as an acquisition channel to develop a relationship directly. The second point to increasing reviews is if you have enough buyer volume, you can run Facebook ads to your Amazon customer list and target them there so that you can then convert them into ManyChat as well. So there's kind of like multiple points for acquiring your Amazon buyers and bringing them into ManyChat so that you can, of course, acquire that review, and second, start that direct relationship.
Great. And are there metrics that you look at to determine if a strategy is successful or not? And then if it's not, are you able to maybe change the strategy moving forward? Or how do you handle that? Mohit?
I think there are like a lot of metrics. The problem is not a shortage of metrics, but to actually like hone down and look at the metrics that really matter for you. A little bit of an extension before I dive into the specific metrics. I think what's also like becoming quite key to re-engaging shoppers and actually also to get them to buy more the minute they find out your product is actually like more and more. Amazon has, if you're a registered brand, the ability to open up a store on Amazon itself, where you can actually tell people a story about your brand, and put all of your different product categories in there to essentially, they're going to introduce a follow button there as well at some point in the future to essentially just to people feel more connected with like this, who you are as a seller and what you're standing for, instead of just having this sort of point in time, one-time interaction where they saw one ad and they bought one product. First off, you can get them to like go through the entire catalog that you have and buy maybe instead of 1-2 products by browsing your store, and also maybe keep coming back to your store because they actually found what you're selling interesting. They found the story and the message that you're getting across to the market quite interesting. So yeah, the branding aspects of it with the store, with sponsored brands ads, I think that's quite powerful as well in terms of re-engaging shopper. And now I think I should answer the specific questions you asked, Amanda, which is around the metrics that people can use to determine if a strategy is successful in terms of their product listing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the organic side as well as the paid side, Amazon actually sort of provides a whole bunch of metrics to help you ascertain like how many people are actually sort of landing on your detail page versus how many of them are converting. So you actually get this information on the organic sessions and page views and conversion rate, even outside of the brand analytics. So hey, finally something that you don't need to be in the brand registry for. Even if you're like just selling a generic product, you have access to all of this information within your seller account. And it's absolute, like, I think the most critical thing to see, like, for example, what's the ratio of people who are actually buying my product versus, the potential opportunity that I had because they actually came to my product page. Yeah. So that's the first thing that you can optimize for. Again, this information is available on the paid side as well when it comes to PPC. That's, I mean, first off, that's the initial conversion rate side of things. Then, I mean, a metric that actually gets put a certain way is a lot of people actually like to talk about the return rate of their customers before they actually purchase a product. So how many times they're actually coming to your product page before they bought the particular product. Well, try and reduce the return rate. They should be buying it the first time. Yeah. If your product listing is beautiful, then they came, they searched, they found exactly what they're looking for, and they pressed like add to cart, and the story was over. So the return rate should be like as low as possible. Yeah. And maybe one additional thing that makes sense, perhaps only for like resellers. Well, if you don't always own the buy box, then make sure that you have the buy box more often than not.
Great.
Just in terms of analytics on our side and campaigns, the main things that we look at are, the analytics inside of your Facebook ads themselves, like what your cost per subscriber is for like a messenger based campaign, a chatbot campaign. And then you're also looking inside of ManyChat. ManyChat has a lot of different analytics, but the kind of, I like to go through my entire flow and see, okay, are there any specific, like what I call log jams or breakdowns where there is drop off, and you can see things like open rates, click-through rates, and you can see how many people have like clicked on a specific button maybe to go and leave a review, those kinds of things. And those are really important data points to understand inside of your campaign and your buyer flow themselves, so that you can optimize your campaign as needed. And ManyChat makes it so easy, and it's one of the reasons why, as a marketing professional, like I love it for business owners, because it makes it really easy to see how the campaign is performing. One of the things that's difficult with product inserts, once you get them in as a subscriber, you can see how many people actually complete the entire flow. One thing that's hard is that you don't know how many people are actually receiving the product insert. You don't know necessarily how many people have opened the product and actually gone through it. So you don't necessarily know that first step. And that's the difference between a digital marketing campaign on Facebook that you can easily see what those data points are and scale it up quickly, or test different calls to action or different, ads. Whereas product inserts, you kind of have this one chance. It's a significant opportunity. It's a significant opportunity to get in front of 100% of your buyers, but you don't necessarily know okay, well, how many of those buyers actually saw the product insert as opposed to it just was part of the unboxing, i.e. garbage experience, So that's one area of breakdown that you can't necessarily see. And people always ask me, well, what is that open percentage? And I'm like, I have no idea. I work with thousands of Amazon sellers, and I have no idea what their, how many customers they have that actually receive their product inserts. So it's one of those data points. It's hard to measure. But everything after that is very obvious and very, helps you to see the exact data points, which I love. I love that data aspect of it.
Awesome. Does anything that anyone wants to add before we wrap up? I know we went over a lot of information today, and if anybody has questions, you can add it in the chat. But is there anything that we want to add as we wrap up today's session? We're all set?
But just just for like potential sellers who are like, maybe like fairly new into the game, to not be inundated by all the information, because, well, I mean, things like grow gradually. Yeah. So start small. Start with optimizing, for example, your product listing. Nail down the traction piece of things. Then sort of like, actually maybe like identify your target consumer first. Yeah, because you're building a product for them. So identify your target consumer. Nail down the traction so that, like, if, for example, somebody who's from within your target consumer range is actually seeing your product, then they're buying your product. And once you've established that sort of like golden sort of ratio, then it's time to scale. Yeah? Then it's time to invest in like marketing efforts, and go after the traffic piece of things. So you can do all of this gradually. You don't need to actually like nail down the 3 T's altogether as well. Start with them one after another. Do the right targeting. Go after the traction piece. Then scale it up for traffic. Yeah?
Great advice. Thanks, Mohit.
Yeah, definitely. We've kind of been talking a lot about the customer, but I think it's one of the pieces that's easiest to forget when you're doing all of these things is really putting your mind into your customer experience at every step of this way and thinking about how they're feeling, what they're doing. What would they be doing in conjunction with opening up your product and potentially looking at an insert? Like, is this something that's like for their dog, and so they just pull out the bag and just reach their hand in blindly, and so then maybe an insert isn't even going to be that helpful, and something directly on the bag that they're going to be looking at would be much more effective. So the more that you can think in the mind of your customer, instead of just keeping yourself on your side of things, even when you're sitting down to write your listing, it's so easy you open up a word processor, whichever one you're using, and you sit down with a blank screen and your computer and you start typing. And how many of you are just yourself and your computer? But if you can actually think about that person and what their experience is like when they're sitting at their computer, and really thinking of it like a conversation, and how can you connect with them and how can you appeal to their interests, that's where you're going to achieve a lot more success. And it's taking all of this input and continuously refeeding that so that you don't write the perfect listing and then think that that's going to do everything that you need a listing to do for the next 3 years. It's something that you want to continue to revisit to make sure that it's relevant, to make sure that the keywords that you're using are still the keywords that people are using to search for your product. Maybe you're selling something that was a relatively unknown type of product, but it's become trendier over the recent years. And so the keyword opportunities have expanded and developed, and you want to make sure that you're incorporating those. Or you've done such a fantastic job that you have copycats. And so even if your listing is great, if you've gotten to a point that your listing looks exactly like your competitors and you want to maintain that edge, then you may need to change things just in order to stay ahead of the curve. So it's really thinking about how to make sure that you don't just get to the top, but that you stay at the top.
Yeah. That's great, Emma. That's so great. I love that. It's easier to defend your mountaintop than it is to climb the mountain. So to that point, guys, my last nugget for you is that right now is such a critical time to rank for gift-related keywords. I mean, I don't have to tell you, this year is going to be very different from previous holiday buying seasons, right? Last year, in 2019, Amazon had 40% of the holiday spending revenue, at least in the United States, 40%. So imagine what has happened with the huge shift in buyers turning to e-commerce for their buying. This year is going to be critical for your listings to show up, right? And all of the things that we have talked about today are going to help you do that. But one area that we didn't talk about is just kind of that keyword research side of things. And it's going to be really important for you to look for gift keywords that relate to your product, that your product can play in. And remember that niche is rich rule. I don't want you going after Christmas gift or women's gift, women's gift. And what's really interesting about these gift related keywords is that right now, if you search, if you use Helium 10 or any research, keyword research, or Sellics. Yes, I wasn't sure if you did keyword research. I apologize. But right now that search volume might look like this. And so it might not look very attractive, but come early November, December, it's going to just shoot up. And so the best time to climb that mountain, to catch that wave, is when it's small, right? And so that you can be on top, you can be riding that wave, you can be defending that mountain, all the way through buying season. And so it's really important. One of the biggest keywords on Amazon is gifts for women. And right now, like just standard gifts for women, usually hovers around 100,000 searches a month. And that in and of itself is a really difficult keyword to rank for, but come December, it shoots up to over 3 million searches in that 4-week period of time. That is not a keyword that I want you to go after because it's super random. You type in that search term, it's just all sorts of just random stuff, right? There's very little buyer intent. Somebody typing that keyword is just looking for inspiration because they're desperate, right? Men, I'm looking at you. So it's really important to niche those keywords. Go look at, if you have a skincare product for women, do like skincare gift or beauty gift or something in that category. My husband is a hunter. He's out hunting today. So I'm shopping for hunting gifts for men. If your product has any, for better or for worse, guys, for better or for worse, if your product has any political opportunities in any way, Trump gifts, Biden gifts, like those are massive, and they're going to have a massive presence both for the holiday season and for the election season. So right now it's really critical to do that keyword research and to get those ranking campaigns going so that you can, get those search terms in your listing so that you can get, so you can get indexed for them and then go for it. Run those ranking campaigns. And I know inventory is sensitive for a lot of people right now, but I guarantee it's going to make a big impact and a big opportunity for you in this coming holiday season.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Awesome. Well, thank you for a great panel today. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. And again, if you have any questions, add them in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.